I love it. Just really being curious, learning more, learning the other person's point of view, actually. Sometimes when you're challenging, you actually get to a point where you have to change your own thinking rather than the other person's thinking, which is just a really nice place to be because anything's possible.
Hello and welcome to Becoming the Influential Me. I'm Michelle Chikanda and today I am so excited because I'm kicking off a brand new series on this podcast inspired by International Women's Day last month. I was so inspired by the Choose to Challenge motto. And, you saw everybody going, posting pictures with their hand up saying, I choose to challenge. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could lift the curtain, a little bit and go behind the veil and show people what it is that I do and the kinds of conversations I'm having with these incredible women. So over the next few weeks, I'm going to be sharing with you 3 stories from 3 women that I have been fortunate enough to work with and their journeys and their understanding of what challenge is. The people that I have chosen are 3 uniquely different people. So you will probably hear your story from one of these women. The first person in this series is Nicky, and Nicky is somebody who is a lifelong learner. She's always been a curious person about why people do the things they do. And in that process of her own learning, she has had good experiences and bad experiences. But over the last few months of us working together, she's started to create momentum in building the ultimate future that she wants. I'm not going to give you any spoilers, but here's what Nicky had to say, and make sure you make a note of the nuggets and the things that she says, because she is so inspiring. And that's it from me for now. I will catch you on the other side of this interview. Nicky, thank you so much for joining me today. I have to say, I've worked with so many women, and you are by far the one that I find the most intriguing and the most generous of spirit. It's not very often that I come across people like you, and I really have to say I really, really love working with you. All my clients that are listening will now probably call me and say, what about me? And that's okay, I'll deal with that. So Nicky, today we've been having chats, over the past few months, and since you became one of my clients, we've gotten to know each other a little bit better. And I find your story so fascinating. But I don't want to give too much away. Let's just start with the basics. Tell us a little bit about, who you are and I guess where you were in terms of your state of mind when we first met.
Okay, so we first met in November. And when I first came into contact with you, I think I was kind of really unsure of myself. There had been things that happened in 2020 that made me, I don't know, I had lots of limiting beliefs at the time as well. So other people had said things and I believed them. I think I was just at a point where, I was just unsure. I was unsure of myself and I was lacking confidence.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about some of those things, because this is something that happens to almost all of us. I mean, I've been questioned. I've had people question my ability to do my job based on my age, or people are like, oh, she's too happy, she's too green, as it were. And these things really do stick, and you start to think, should I change who I am? So, I mean, for you, what were some of the things that, that really stuck with you? Not necessarily that it was true, but that you believed to be true.
There's a couple of things, actually. There's some things that would go back into childhood for me. So there was this whole thing around education, because I'm not
educated.
Yeah,
I'm not educated enough.
Exactly. So where I had
a degree.
Yeah,
is that what it was?
Okay. And things like that. So there was always a little part of me that kind of felt a little bit of imposter syndrome, I suppose. So there was that. Do I know as much as everybody else? Am I as good as everybody else? All of those limiting beliefs, I suppose, that come in, and then the monkey's on your shoulder telling you this and telling you that.
Yeah, exactly. but I mean, just so that anybody who's listening really understands, even though you don't have a degree, you still manage to rise up to the level where you're a leader in L&D, right? You've gotten to manage teams and, effectively help businesses navigate some challenging restructures, even though you don't have a degree. But you still had that little chimp on your shoulder, as you said, telling you, or you're not good enough, you're not
Exactly.
educated enough, you're not smart enough, you're
Mhm.
not capable enough, and everybody around you knows more than you do.
Yeah, and I don't know where that came from. So, like you said, I've been very fortunate with the chances that I've had at work and how high I've been able to climb. And actually, I did know. I was constantly researching. I was constantly bettering myself. I will be getting more degree this year, but so yeah, it was me telling myself more than anything else, I suppose. And listening. There had been a couple of people along the way that had affected how I thought about myself, and yeah, I suppose I was listening and I shouldn't have been. I should have stuck to the authentic me.
So which moves me on to the next question.
Mm-hmm.
What did you have to challenge within yourself
Yeah.
in order for you to get past those limiting beliefs where you have the chip on your shoulder telling you you're not good enough, everybody else around you knows more than you do? What did you have to challenge?
Well, it came from actually when I realized I was shocking in interviews. That's where I realized that my confidence had dropped. And I think that's when we had our very first conversation. So really what I had to do was, instead of trying to be somebody else, which is what my monkey was telling me to do, I need to challenge myself to believe in myself again and just have real clarity. And I think that was the first module that we worked on, real clarity on who I am, what I want, how I'm going to get it. And I think my mind was all over the place a little bit, where I was going, do I do this? Do I do that? Trying to please the person in front of me, but not letting the authentic me come through. So therefore, I was probably playing up to imposter syndrome in my interviews.
Yeah, I mean, so what was happening? So you would go for an interview and, you know your stuff, you're experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And then what would happen? You go into the room and...
I would be absolutely fine until I got to the senior person, because that's where I had some issues before. And then I don't know why, I would just blank. They would ask me a question and I would blank, and I would say the most stupid thing. And then I would walk out the interview and think, why didn't I say that? Like, I know this. Like, why didn't I say that? And it's because I just literally went blank.
Okay, cool. And I mean, and what other things did you have to challenge? Because it was really about, your fear getting in the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what happened? What about the senior leaders scared you? What was it? What was it about that? Because you said you were fine at the lower level, which is common. Mm-hmm. And then you get into like the highest level of interview, and then you just completely freeze. What was it about those people that intimidated you?
I think it does come from past experience of situations that had happened. But I think it was I suppose I would become in awe of that person in that moment, and just like I wasn't on the same level and I couldn't have the conversation with that person. And I don't know where it came from. Mm-hmm. So I would get to either, I was speaking to, I was getting to final stages. I'd get to out of two people and I would just mess up that final interview. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. So yeah, I don't know why. I suppose I wasn't seeing them as a person. I wasn't seeing them like I'm talking to you. I was seeing them as, I don't know, an authoritative figure, I suppose, that I was intimidated by.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and this happens to a lot of people. A lot of the times when we want something, we want it a little bit too badly that we stop being able to see, and then we start listening to ourselves rather than actually thinking about the person that's in front of us and what they need, right? Yeah, exactly. And what they need to hear and what they need from us. So let's fast forward a little bit. You've come from this situation where you are somebody who is going through different roles, gaining lots of experience, rising relatively fast and being given opportunities in an organization, to somebody who doesn't believe in themselves, thinks they're an imposter because they don't have a degree, and because a degree is everything. Yeah. And even though you were educating yourself, you're still lacking this self-belief. Yeah. Let's fast forward to sort of now. What did you have to shift, Nicky? Let's before we say what did you have to shift, let's say, where are you now? Do you still believe that the degree is the missing piece in your life? What have you been able to where are you now?
So I've spent the last few months doing lots of self-development, and I love that anyway. I suppose it goes hand in hand with the job. But I would say the biggest difference between me then and now is confidence. And I loved your confidence course. That was absolutely amazing. You know, and I challenge myself in so many ways. Like I would do industry talks before, and I would freeze. I would literally be up in front of the room and I would freeze. So I forced myself onto a public speaking course, and you know, I just did all these things and took myself out of my comfort zone. So this monkey telling me I couldn't do things, I was doing everything the monkey told me I couldn't do, because I can.
Why did you do it? Why did you suddenly decide to, you know what, I'm just going to push myself and I'm going to go for it? What clicked in your mind?
I suppose it was clarity, and there isn't a limit.
Yeah.
The ceiling is a ceiling you put, isn't it?
Nicky, I have to ask something else. I have to ask, how did it feel you know, feeling like I'm not good enough and, you know, I don't have the experience, versus what it feels like now? Talk me through that emotion.
So I'm less nervous. I think that's probably the biggest one when going for an interview now than I was before. You know, I've had some great interviews, and the last one I absolutely loved the company, etc. But honestly, it probably wasn't the right job for me. You know, I got down to the last two. You know, when you and I were talking as I was going for that interview. But yeah, I think the biggest difference is I'm not scared to try something, which I put myself into this tiers where I was, and I think 2020 did that for a lot of people. So I'm more fearless. I wouldn't say I'm completely fearless, but I am more fearless than I was before. I'm much more confident now than I was before, and it feels, it's not even a word, but I don't know how to put it any other way. It feels freeing. Do you see what I mean? Like instead of being tied down, I feel free that I can do whatever I want to do, and I am good enough. And I'm not just applying for jobs to need the money now. I'm applying for jobs that I really want. Yeah,
and what I love I remember you sent me a message and you said, "I'm having fun." It was like, you know, I'm going for these, you know, jobs that could transform my entire life, and I'm interviewing, but it doesn't matter. I'm actually just enjoying it.
And learning from the experience. Whereas before it was the be all and end all, and I would have a meltdown, you know, oh my God, you know, didn't get the job or whatever. And now it's like, no, actually, I'm gaining experience because I never really had interviews before. I was very lucky. All my career was through a coffee and a chat, and then you talk about business. And that's kind of how I'd landed my jobs, or I was poached from one company to another company. So this is the first time I've really been going through rigorous interview processes.
So when you think of the word challenge, what did it mean to you before, and what does it mean to you now?
I think the word challenge, it can be taken both ways. It can be positive or it can be negative. And I think challenge can be connected to conflict in a negative way, which isn't always true, because you can challenge beliefs and thoughts or processes. But I think I probably saw challenge or someone who was, if I would call somebody challenging, I would probably have said that in a negative way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how do you view it now?
I love it. Because I know that sounds nuts. Because it's just really being curious, learning more, learning the other person's point of view, actually. Sometimes when you're challenging, you actually get to a point where you have to change your own thinking rather than the other person's thinking, which is just a really nice place to be, because anything's possible.
Yeah, and I love this idea. One of the things that I always encourage people to do when I talk about challenge is not to be so wedded to your ideas. Because then you're like, okay, I'm going to challenge this thought, and maybe out of the two of us, I'm the one that's going to change, and that's okay,
exactly.
Right? And being open and you know, and being what's the word I'm looking for? And being
curious,
experimental, curious. Yeah, exactly. Experimental and curious, and having more fun, because only then can we really get to where we want to get to. And it attracts people. Like, I think the thing that I found most attractive about you, and why I was so, you know, wedded to your journey, is because you are such a curious person. And you're also like, where is this going to go? And you know what you like, and you exude positivity, and that sort of draws people to you.
Yeah. And I think also when I was in that space, probably before you started coaching me, I think your energy does like deflect things away from you. They're just not coming into your life. And now I'm in this other space. I mean, things just are, I was saying to you just before we even started this, you know, I just feel like there's lightning bolts of things, of like some really great stuff that's happening in my life around work or career or dreams that I've had. And it's just a really nice place to be.
Amazing. Speaking of dreams,
Mm-hmm.
there is one big little one that you're currently working on.
Yes.
Right? And you without a degree,
Mm-hmm.
have managed to write a book.
I have. It's with the editor now. And I was really excited. I got approached by a agent as well. So, and I never thought that would happen. I thought I'd have to self-publish. So yeah, it's, I would say that I wanted to write this book for a long time, but I think fear got in the way, and writing it fearlessly and writing it authentically, I think, is what made the book work. Yeah.
And speedily as well. You've written it very quickly, and you've been committed to the process, because you were like, right, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this well.
Yeah. And it's probably taken over me doing anything else right now as well, because I've just been so focused. I'm going to get this book out. You know, my reasons behind the book, I really believe in my why. And I'm so clear on that. There's so much clarity around my book, which is what's made it happen.
I love it. I love that we're here talking about challenge. And the one key theme that I keep hearing from you is clarity. Yeah, just be clear on what you are going for, and almost all the challenges disappear. You're just like, I'm going for it. It doesn't matter what challenge comes my way, who I have to challenge, what thoughts I have to challenge. It doesn't matter, because I've got to be because I'm hyper clear on what I want and how I'm going to get there.
Yeah. And fearless. So like, and even the challenges, they're not scary anymore, because if there is a challenge, I'm going to learn something from it, right? So
I love that. Nicky, I was going to ask you the question, you know, why do you invest time and money in your development? I was going to ask it, why did you make the decision? But I get the impression that you're just somebody who believes in it as a mantra, just constantly learning and developing yourself. Why do you do that? Why are you like this?
I think that probably comes from very, very early on with me, actually. I think I've always been curious about what's happening around me, and I'm fascinated by other people's behaviors. I think I think humans have so much potential to be either good or ugly. And I find that fascinating. And what is it that makes people tick like that? What is it that makes people behave in certain ways? And I love that section in your course as well, actually, where we really, really took a deep dive into personality types. And I've worked on it before, you know, I've looked at insights and things like that. But the way we did it was so interesting. So I was finding myself over those couple of weeks really kind of like psychoanalyzing people around me and their behaviors, really. But not because I was thinking about them, but I was thinking about the approach that I was taking to that person to get a better end result with whatever conversations we were having.
Exactly. And it's this idea, I mean, you basically just allowed yourself to think beyond yourself. Yeah. And this is something that a lot of us miss. A lot of us are so busy thinking about what I want from you. And so you then don't look at, you know, what other people need from you in order for the conversation to be conducive. And I'm not even talking about trading things or positions or, you know, possessions. I'm actually just talking about the spirit of conversation. You know, you don't want to be that person that walks into the room and starts just yapping and yapping and yapping, and everybody else is looking at you like, when's that person going to start? And you're like, yeah, it was a great evening. And everybody else is like, oh my gosh, please don't invite them again. Do you know what I mean? But it's just, not all of us are yappers. Some of us are too quiet. But it's just this idea of, you know what, I'm naturally a quiet person. How can I give of myself for somebody else? Or I'm naturally a chatty person. So how can I hold back so that the other person gets what they need from me?
Yeah. And the other thing was, I can be quite chatty, but I also, because I think we talked about this as well, like sometimes if you're in very senior meetings, like what's the point that I can speak? Like what's the right, without interrupting or whatever? And quite often, I think especially us women, we hold back and we don't say, because you don't want to interrupt, you don't want to be seen to be rude or so yeah.
Pushy, you know, that's another one. I don't want to be too pushy, or I don't want to be too vocal, or I don't want to sound stupid. There are so many reasons we come up.
Men get called assertive, and you know, like, why are we pushy but they're assertive? Like, seriously.
Exactly. I mean, I love the fact that more and more women are starting to just put themselves out there. And this is what this is about. It's not about getting, I will say one thing, Nicky, I didn't prepare you for this, but just before this interview, you wanted to tell me what you wanted to say. And I had to say, no, Nicky, this is not a test. You're not being marked out of 100. Just show up and let's have a conversation. But this is what we're talking about. As women, sometimes we kind of just want to be in a place where it's safe and it's okay. And you've shown up and you've shared so much already that I think is going to help a lot of people in whatever situations they are in. And that's good enough. We did it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, it's just accepting that, I am enough as I am without practice. My experience and my knowledge is paramount. So let's talk about, speaking of what you can give to other people. I know one of the things that you are passionate about is people that are forgotten, or people that are, left behind, abused, or whatever you want to, whatever phrase.
You see it in the workplace as well. That's why I went to Tendy. People get overlooked because, you're not the favourite or whatever, or because they're not using their voice to show what they know or what they're doing, and somebody else is taking the credit or whatever. That's why I got into N&D. I love watching people rise.
Right. I mean, so what's your advice to that woman that is fearful of challenging, doesn't speak up, isn't the favorite, and doesn't necessarily know, how to approach things?
I think the first thing really would be is believe in yourself and believe in your why. Do really understand your why, because I think that helps give you a voice. If you don't have the why, you're mute because you don't even know why you're saying what you're saying or why you're passionate about it. I would say that's the first thing.
Go back to basics. Get really clear on what your why is. Okay. Yeah, what's the second thing?
The second thing, it depends on which situation you're in, but I think research is massive. Do your homework.
Invest in yourself, learn more. And investing doesn't necessarily mean money either. It's investing the time to do the research, investing, the time to think differently. One of the things that I love telling people is, if you don't have a penny to your name, grab a blank sheet of paper. That is sometimes the best learning you can do. Really thinking about, what is my why, like you said. What are my options? It doesn't have to cost money. But it's this idea of,
and believe in yourself. You choose your limit. Somebody else doesn't get to choose your limit. You choose your ceiling. Somebody else doesn't get to choose your ceiling. Somebody else doesn't get to push you down so they can rise. You get to choose your ceiling. And really, kind of, it's nice when you swim with people with you, rather than someone's got their hand on someone's head and they're drowning them to stay up. Swim together. That's what I'd say to women.
Create allies. I love that. Cool. And then I guess my final question for you is, you've been through my program and what it was like. Just, I guess, share we haven't discussed this prior, so nobody, I don't know what you're going to say. Please be nice. But what are your thoughts of the whole thing? And what did you find that challenged you the most about the program?
Firstly, I think the timing was perfect. So the program is over a 9-week period, and I think the amount of work we had to do in that 9-week period made us knuckle down and really do it, and you had to really think about it. I believe that if you have a training program that's extended for too long, you just lose momentum. So the momentum was there. The other thing was working with other women that are like-minded was amazing. I mean, I've made some of the most incredible network friends from doing the modules. The catch-ups that happened in between, so our Zoom sessions where everybody was together and you had an opportunity to ask your questions or to voice your fears in a very safe place was amazing. I really like the way the modules were set up. So starting with us, starting with clarity, starting with just really kind of getting it straight in our minds, and then picking up the tools along the way. I loved your section with the movie clips because it just put the whole thing into perspective. Was just absolutely brilliant. But all of it was work that we could work with. None of it was just spoon feeding. It wasn't knowledge giving. It was tools. It was tools for a toolkit, and it was things that you had to practice and things that you had to try. And I think if I was giving advice to somebody else, I'd say go in, go all in. Don't just go in and just do it and say, I've ticked a box, I've done it. Go all in, because the amount you have to get out of it on the other side and the person you become is just incredible.
Amazing. And remind us again who that person is. We know you were fearful before and self-doubt, and you didn't have a degree. Does a degree still matter, Nicky?
It doesn't matter to me at all. I think it's I think where I was applying for certain jobs and they were saying that it's a must, that became more important in that respect. But no, I don't think so. I think like I said, the sky's the limit. It's up to you to go out there and get your job, get the experience. And I think experience counts for a lot, because quite often I've been reading some bits where people have gone and got themselves masters, etc. They don't have the experience and they still can't get the job, because now the job is saying you don't have the experience. So, you know, it's how you
it's really about having the skills and being able to show up and represent yourself. I think sometimes you make the excuse, I don't have this, I don't have the experience, or I don't have the masters, but it's really at the end of it, how can I show up for this role and be the best version that I can be? And only then can we get the opportunities.
Yeah. And the other thing I'd say as well, I think it's the first time I've really understood a CEO, whereas I think they were just kind of like a complete mystery to me, because they
enigma.
Like literally, and they're quite unpredictable as well, and they change their minds so often, etc. And I think it was amazing spending that time with you as well, and just like learning, like, and there is a certain personality type. I'm not saying they're all the same, but it's not something to be frightened of, not something to be, do you know what I mean, fearful of. What I wrote down for myself, and I think this is really, I think this sums it up, was what I loved about the course is the reflective element plus the practical element, as well as the information that was led through by somebody who was inspiring and had the credibility of having worked through things themselves. I think that's kind of what was the massive buy-in for me. And, you know, because you are super inspiring, Michelle, like listening to your stories, and you're very open and you're very okay to be vulnerable. And I think that makes it a very safe space for other people to be vulnerable too. So for me, it was one of the best investments, one of the best courses I've done, I think. And I've been on a lot of courses.
Amazing. Okay. So what one piece of advice would you give somebody if they're thinking, yeah, I'm not sure if I want to do this? You know, my feeling when people say I'm on the fence, I always think, you know, if you can't fully commit, then don't commit. But what would be your advice to somebody who's thinking, I'm not sure I want to do this?
Well, I probably, because I was on the fence. Do you remember we spoke a couple of times before I started in the course, and I was on the fence. Yeah. And I think you just need to be clear in your mind, what is it that you want? And I think this course gave me more than just influencing, which is what I was after. It gave me so much more. It gave me so much more about me, and the person I am is so different to the person I was before I started. So if you're on the fence, I would say to yourself, are you happy where you're at? And do you want to still be here in 3 months' time? If the answer to those questions is no, I want to move on and I want to be in a better place, I'd say I'd do the course.
Summed it up. I mean, I don't have much more to say than that. Nicky, thank you so much. Let us know when your book comes out. We will all be queuing to buy it because we think you're fabulous. But not only that, it's really important that we support one another. So let us know when your book is out so we can get involved and subscribe to whatever else you're doing. I think you're really inspirational, and your passion and your curiosity is undeniable. And I have certainly no doubt that you're going to be incredibly successful in whatever you decide to do. What I love most about your message is that you want to help other people. You want to help people that have been left behind in a way that you felt left behind or unseen. And I'm co-partnering in that agenda. You know, I think it's a beautiful agenda, and we can't wait to hear more from you. So thank you so much for taking the time, and we look forward to hearing more.
Perfect, thank you.
Isn't she just a force? When I see her, I see a lot of different women that come to me and say, what more can I do? I'm trying everything. You know, I've done everything they've asked me to do, and it makes sense for me to have been promoted by now. But as we see from Claudine, sometimes the answer isn't external, the answer is internal. And I hope that you got as much from that as I did, just speaking to her. if you have any questions or any thoughts, please do email me, michelle@theinfluentialme.com. If you're not a part of my training, go ahead and check it out, because it will be coming down at the latter part of next week. I'm really, really, really grateful for you listening. And if you have questions, reach out to me. If you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure you subscribe. And I will see you next week.